Hey everybody, welcome to the Blendr Report, where news meets rational thinking. I'm your host, Jonathan Harvey. This is your co-host, Liam de Boer. Liam, what are we talking about today?
We are going to be chatting about Poilievre calling on Trudeau to secure the borders and fix the economy after Trump's proposed tariffs. A study finds that DEI programs breed division and not inclusion. Canada's justice system falls to woke ideology. A record number of asylum seekers are set to cost Canadians over $16 billion annually. Poilievre opposes Trudeau's GST break in Trump's National Institute of Health shakeup. First off, we've got Canada First. Poilievre calls on Trudeau to secure the borders and fix the economy after Trump's proposed tariffs. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre sharply criticized Prime Minister Justin Trudeau following Donald Trump's threat of 25% tariffs on Canada over illegal immigration and drug smuggling. Poilievre blamed Trudeau for economic mismanagement, weak border security, and declining per capita GDP, warning of catastrophic consequences for Canada's trade-reliant economy. He demanded action, including halting carbon taxes, increasing oil and gas production, and reforming immigration policies. Poilievre accused Trudeau of failing to anticipate Trump's stance and called for stronger national defense. While Trudeau's ministers emphasized diplomacy, Poilievre pledged a Canada First approach, aligning with Trump's economic nationalism if elected. So, will Trump's pressure make Trudeau change course, or is he utterly inept at dealing with a problem of this magnitude?
This is pretty interesting, right? So Trump made one move that it's kind of like he pulled out the one Jenga block that made everything fall. And I recognize that everything hasn't fallen, but all of Trudeau's policies have kind of come crashing down if he's going to fix this one thing, right? Because Poilievre's not wrong. It is economics. It is per capita GDP. It is, the catastrophic consequences at your border. It is the carbon tax hikes. It's all of these things need to be adjusted now to sort of create a Canada First and fight back against Trump. You don't really have a choice. Trump made this one move, and because of their position in the world and how significant they are for our trade both ways, we have no choice but to respond. And it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to come at it from a perspective of like violence or anger. Just be like, okay, well, you did this, we have to do this. We don't really have a choice. It's got to cancel each other out. But it really did highlight sort of all of these errors that the Liberal government has been making. What's interesting here, though, is Trudeau doesn't really have a choice. Right? You can't leave all this stuff and not do anything about it. You have to respond in some way. So he's going to have to roll back some of his policies. He's going to have to fix his border. He's going to have to make some adjustments in the economy because this tariff is going to be pretty significant. So you're going to have to make some of these changes no matter what, or it's just going to exacerbate everything that's imploding in this country, right? So it'll be interesting. Like in terms of his ineptitude, look, the Liberal government as an organization is obviously robust. But their bureaucracy is always in their way. But I think that's to suit their own interest, not because they're totally incapable, because the system's broken and people are just kind of playing along. But if someone goes, hey, do or die, you need to get this thing done or you all lose your jobs, or X happens. Well, this is X. This is that time. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see them, the Liberal Party, the people that actually do the work, mobilize and get something done here. The challenge you're going to have is the dichotomy between what Trudeau's been espousing over the last 10 years and really what he's got to do now in his last year to sort of correct course. Now, here's something to think about, though. If he does make all of these adjustments quickly, because this is going to be a pace game, if he makes all of these adjustments quickly, he might actually give himself the best opportunity for re-election or the Liberal Party for re-election. I don't think it's going to happen, but I could see if they make all of these changes, they will significantly rise in the polls, right? Because right now I think they got like 17 seats the last time I saw. Like it's really bad. I'll wrap up my point in saying I agree with Pierre Poilievre's perspective of a Canada First approach, and not just because of what America's done, because of the way the world is going. You've talked about on this, a lot in the past. We are looking at a declining GDP pretty much in the West, maybe globally. It's inevitable. So when that happens, you have to make adjustments on how your economy operates. And one thing that we know has happened that has put us at a disadvantage is globalism, because people can produce goods much cheaper. So if you're thinking long game and you see where this is going, you need more domestic production. You need Canadians to be doing a lot more for themselves. So even though this will be a painful Band-Aid to rip off, it is the right approach. So in all honesty, like Trump is just helping us get there a little faster with his decision. Is it going to be bumpy? Do I think it's the best path? Not necessarily, but it's pushing us in the right direction in either case.
Well, this goes to show how crazy Trump's influence is, because I think it's worth noting that he's not even president yet.
Yeah.
In a single tweet can get our prime minister to essentially, and our entire political system essentially, to go into to full-blown panic. And now, within a week, Trudeau is down there trying to have dinner with him and trying to mull it over. One thing I think when it comes to this whole 25% tariff thing is, I wonder whether this is Trump's play at trying to get something out of a tariff that he is going to place on us no matter what. So somebody within that was down at that meeting, apparently Vassie, I think it was Vassie from CTV that was saying she had sources that were at the dinner. And it was it might have been her, it might have been another interview. Sorry if I'm mixing this up. But either way, somebody was making the claim that Trudeau insiders are saying that at that party, Trump made it clear that tariffs are coming no matter what, because he wants to fund the federal government through tariffs rather than through income taxes. So that this is kind of like a play of like, hey, I'm going to put a 25% tariff on you, so I might as well say it's for XYZ reason, even if those are valid reasons, like say our border insecurity and such, so that you try to make that movement before I even put it in. Because if I just say I'm going to put it on you no matter what, then I get no change as well. But if I say I'm going to put it on you for this reason, then it's like a double whammy, because now I get my policy that I want, which is the tariff, and I get you to react in a way that I want, which is to pull down to clamp down on your border.
I think it's two things. So I think what you're going to see happen, that's actually a good point. What I think he's going to do, now that I'm just considering this from a strategic perspective, is 25% on everything unless you do what I say.
Mm-hmm.
So then let's say everybody complies, they do what he says. Okay, now it's only 25 on these goods. So it's going to be whatever goods he, we talked about tariffs. I had a live chat about tariffs like a couple weeks ago. It was interesting. There are benefits to them depending on what you want domestic production to look like within your own country. So if America's like, hey, here's the goods that we are going to produce. Let's say it's 50, 60% of things, just for argument's sake, it doesn't matter. Let's say it's 50%. So the other 50%, so that 50%, if you're shipping them into the United States, I'm going to put tariffs on them no matter what. The other 50%, we don't need to put tariffs on them because we don't produce them ourselves. So you can kind of look at that and go, he's going to have some flexibility based on what he's trying to accomplish. And I think that's what he will use to convince people to yes, implement these changes, but stick with them. Because, you do this and then you keep a 25% tariff on these guys anyway. I mean, Canada might let their border go again, but Mexico would definitely. I mean, what kind of response does Mexico have otherwise? You know what I mean? I just be like, oh, you're going to continue with the tariff even though we complied to all your demands? Yeah, that border's opening up tomorrow.
Right.
So I feel like there's going to be that push and pull. But yeah, you're right. It's probably going to end up arbitrarily halfway through. I don't know, middle ground. But I think they'll find some balance based on whatever America's goals are.
And I think this should be a shifting of priorities for us in Canada, because one of the things that we definitely need to lean on is our natural resources.
100%.
Like what natural gas, oil, that kind of stuff. The things that make Canada very unique on the world stage as far as our ability to have access to these natural resources. That's what we need to rely on to get us out of the position that we've got in with mass amounts of national debt and a struggling economy. And we really need to focus on things like oil and natural gas. For that, we had the leader of Japan and Germany both come knocking at our door saying they need to they would like Canadian energy so that they don't have to rely on Russian fuel, and that they're not funding the very people that they're claiming are going to invade them anytime now. But one issue with that as well is when it comes to America is that a lot of the oil that comes out of Alberta, if the oil sands, it gets refined in America because we don't have those capabilities here. So we essentially send them the raw crude and they refine it, and then, that's their whole process. So I think we need to definitely lean on that aspect, but we're going to have to put things into place, such as developing our own refinery and such.
Yeah, so Canada's got the most natural gas in the world. We have enough that we can prove right now to power the world for 209 years as it stands. That's insane. I believe we've got the third highest provable oil as well in terms of volume. Oil sands do make it more difficult. So there's a pricing threshold. So I remember back in the day, if gas, this was probably 15, 20 years ago. So bear with me. If gas wasn't selling for like 65 cents a liter or above, there was no point in refining the oil because of the cost. So, I mean, you could probably imagine that's probably like $1 today or something like that. So definitely more of an expensive process and a heavier lift. But again, yeah, why aren't we just developing an economy around that? I totally agree. Like, you see, like, this is what Poilievre is saying. Like, these are the things that we need to do to fix this country. And these are the tools we have. We have some of the best in the world, if not the best, to get ourselves out of this mess, and very quickly if we just make the right moves. And then you see Trudeau's climate agenda, and this is the one reason why he might just flip the bird to Trump and just say, "Hey, we're not playing your game. We don't care," because he's not been willing to adjust his climate agenda for Canada's economy, and he's not been willing to adjust his climate agenda for the war. Essentially, if you think about it, because like you said, if Germany and Japan are both in a precarious situation because of the war with Russia, which they are, and they're buying energy, whether through India or directly from Russia, still funding the Russian efforts, now is your opportunity to take that away from Russia and actually hurt their economy and hurt their ability to continue fighting this war. Still won't do it. So this is interesting. He may stick to his guns with his climate agenda and just be like, nope, this is my hill to die on, and that's that. So I don't know. Again, I don't think that would be ineptitude as much as a really bad decision, but hopefully it doesn't go that way.
It was just weeks ago that he was saying that Canadians need to prioritize climate change over feeding their kids, right?
And he was also saying everyone loves the carbon tax now, guys. Yeah. What?
And then also there's the added aspect of just a society, there's three really key aspects that a society relies on, which is energy,
cheap energy,
agriculture, and finance. If you can control, if you can control those three areas of a society, you control the entire society.
Yes.
And so when you think about, okay, giving yourselves bargaining chips on the global stage, if you can essentially, if other countries are dependent on you for one of those three things, like say certain countries are dependent on the US dollar or agricultural exports or whatever, we should be using our energy for that reason as well, because it gives us leverage in other scenarios. So if countries like Germany and Japan are using, hell, even China, like China is, I think they're the largest importer of oil in the world because they don't have really domestic energy production other than coal plants and that kind of stuff, but they don't have like a wealth of oil reserves that they can pull from. So it's like, okay, right now, China is over leveraging Canada. We're in China's pocket, but you can start in a good leader would be able to trade wars per se is having a chip to play like that, where you go, okay, like, hey, we're now going to sell you energy instead of Iran. And hey, then the dominoes even fall as well. Then you're taking money out of Iran's pocket.
Yes.
And it gives you leverage.
It's just ridiculous, the situation we're in because of this guy. It's wild. I hope we correct course here with this. I've been going on about this for a while, that if we start leveraging our natural resources, Canada can get out of this mess very, very quickly. And hopefully Trump, hopefully this decision from Trump pushes Trudeau in the right direction. And if not, it's just one more reason to vote the guy out. And if not, you also know that when Poilievre gets in, this is exactly what's going to happen.
All right, moving on. We've got study finds DEI programs breed division and suspicion, not inclusion. A Rutgers University study exposes the dark reality of diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI training, revealing it fosters division and hostility instead of inclusion. Participants were exposed to DEI materials from figures like Ibram X. Kendi and Robin DiAngelo, imagined bias, and demanded punishment in neutral scenarios, including firings and apologies, based on perceived discrimination. This pattern extended to other topics as well, with participants endorsing hostility against groups perceived as oppressors. Far from promoting empathy, DEI programs manufacture ideological zealots who see oppression everywhere and demand retribution for it. Rather than uniting society, DEI fosters paranoia and division under the guise of progress. So, is DEI starting to die?
We didn't need a study to tell us this stuff.
No.
This is all so clear. And that Robin DiAngelo lady is a whack job.
Oh, yeah.
I can't believe the amount of press that woman gets and how popular she is in any circles whatsoever. She's mentally unwell.
Her book, White Fragility, was one of the best-selling books during the whole BLM stuff, worldwide.
Which is insane. It's interesting with this stuff, right? So the very foundation of this, which we've talked about for quite a long time, is racist. It is. And I'm not saying that there's not inequality and you want to try to balance those things out, but this is not how you do it. Because all you're doing is creating massive division. You're pegging one group of society against the other. That's all this is. But you're doing it institutionally, which is crazy, right? So, you look at since we started trying to actually work on legitimate equality, it was always about balance, compromise, and the institutions were trying to make everybody get along. Essentially, that was the macro idea. Whatever's happening inside can be very different. But the idea, like what they're discussing, what they're talking about, what their propaganda is, primarily is unification, right? This is the complete opposite. This vilifies white people. That's all this has done this whole time, right? And again, look, you and I aren't overly affected. We live in our own little bubbles. We see and understand what's going on around the world, but we can still operate, right? So it doesn't negatively affect us in any big way, but you're seeing it permeate through the education system all the way down to kindergarten.
I don't know. I got my life destroyed at one point for that.
Yeah, was that DEI though necessarily, or was it your perspective on the sort of the global political spectrum?
Well, I think it's the DEI programs that indoctrinate, and it's that rhetoric that indoctrinates the type of people that then, 4 months goes by, they have no idea I do this social media stuff. They see it, and then they go, oh, I'm going hellfire on you.
Yeah, I mean, you could daisy chain that together for sure, but I think directly how you're seeing it institutionally, yeah, maybe. Let's put it this way. The cascading effect has been significant.
Right.
Agreed, totally. But when you stay more focused on the reality of just DEI in its own little lane, the thing's racist to begin with. Like, you knew this was going to fall apart. It's a disaster. It's nothing but divide. It's this whole, it's become the new religion, right? So I look at religion in a couple of ways, and I think for a lot of people it's valuable. But when people say that it's for inclusion, you got to realize it's for exclusion. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Because everyone's got their own and they fight over it, right? There's not one unifying religion. There's several, and everyone's is better. Cool, great. So this is the same shit, right? This was just on an expedited path because there's no retribution. There's no way to make good if you make a mistake. You're cast out and that's the end of it, right? So that makes it a pretty dangerous religion. But you're seeing it fall, not only like you see these studies, sure, but to your question, is it starting to die? Yes, it's been on its way out for a while, big time in the United States. And there's guys like Robbie Starbuck who've really been pushing these things. He highlights all the companies that are doing really leaning into the DEI stuff and how negative it is and what it's doing and how they're affecting children and all these things, which I love. But you perhaps saw one of the biggest dominoes fall the other day, which was Walmart. Walmart in America, the largest employer, has decided to roll back all of its DEI programs, and not just a little bit, like significantly. Like, they're not participating, they're not doing all these things. They're completely backing out of all of it, being like, hey, this isn't for us. We're done. And it's funny, you see the left-wing media go, because of extremists like Robbie Starbuck, Walmart's backing out. You think Walmart backed out because one guy gave them shit online because of some boycott? They're Walmart. They don't give a shit. They just had enough of this stuff, and they realize not only is it ridiculous, it doesn't help your bottom line. So yeah, it's on its way out.
Yeah, I think it's on its way out in the private sector, and it will be in the public sector under somebody like Trump, but it's still very much a thing in Canada's public sector. I think our bureaucracies and stuff.
Yes.
But yes, to your point, you are seeing it really weed itself out of the private sector with things like Walmart. John Deere recently got rid of all their DEI programs as well. I think Harley Davidson did after because they implemented
shredded.
them and they got shredded, and I think they pulled back.
Did they remove that CEO or not? I'm not sure if that happened.
I can't remember,
because he was the eye of the storm there.
Right.
Yeah. So
but either way,
that was a weird one actually.
But either way, the public is revolting against these DEI stuff. You even saw it recently with the Jaguar ads.
Oh God.
Now you're driving around in a gay car.
So disappointing. Yeah. I saw this. I'm like, what is happening, Jaguar? Who are you even speaking to? I'm not their core demographic.
No.
Their core demographic are my parents. I just like the car. So I was like, hey, this thing's pretty cool. Yeah, it actually handles like a sports car. It's an SUV. All right, this is great. You see, I'm like, who are they trying to sell to? I bet they roll back on that ad campaign in less than 6 months, because there's no way, you're not convincing the older generation anymore. They play along with the DEI stuff because they don't want to seem out of touch or rude, but really they're like, what the fuck's going on with all these gay people? That's what they're thinking, because this was their generation. And now they're seeing Jaguar do this. They're like, but because it's getting rolled back, they're like, hey, I don't have to play this game anymore. Great. So that step's done. And now Jaguar does this. Like, this was a huge, if they did this 3 years ago, maybe it would have been relevant. Still a huge mistake. Maybe relevant. Do not like it. Jaguar, turn things around, buddy. Go in reverse.
Well, it's funny to see some of these people that they're still just, we talk about, okay, we're in a bubble. We at least expose ourselves to the things outside of these bubbles.
Yes.
So we're still playing off of them a lot, where these people, I don't think they even see the opposite
Which
side
is insane.
Of things.
This is the disservice.
See their...
Yeah, sorry. This is the disservice of a completely biased and state-controlled media, because the people that are in that silo don't see anything else. They don't see the reality around them, where people like you and I, because we focus in the independent media space, we don't have a choice but to see all the stuff that is hard left, left-wing, moderate, because we have to use the media as sort of our sounding board and sort of our research tools. So we can't have, there's no way we can just live in our own little silo, whereas they do. It's pretty insane.
Well, listen to the Jaguar marketing director.
And at Jaguar, we're passionate about our people, and we're committed to fostering a diverse, inclusive, and unified culture that is representative not only of the people who use our products, but in a society in which we all live. A culture where our employees can bring their authentic selves to work. And we're on a transformative journey of our own, driven by a belief in diversity, inclusion, creativity, policy, and most importantly, action. We've established over 15 DEI groups, such as Pride, who are here tonight in the back. Thank you guys for coming. Women in Engineering and Neurodiversity Matters. We've launched major policy revisions, such as transitioning at work, to drive equity and support for our communities, embracing individuality as our superpower.
So that company is toasty. If they don't make changes the next 6 months, they're gone. They'll be sold for parts.
Well, I just don't see how, like, again, that is just a litany of, okay, I'm going to just say the words. None of that is an original thought.
That was all performative nonsense.
You could have swapped that out with every marketing director's speech over the last 10 years and it would sound identical.
Except
so this idea, so this is what's so funny about the, saying things like, as he did throughout there, where individuality is like, nothing about you guys is unique. Nothing. And this is where like the Orwellian doublethink kind of creeps in with the whole woke stuff is, he said, war is peace, slavery is freedom, and ignorance is strength. That was the motto of Big Brother in 1984. Whereas here, it's diversity is conformity, inclusion is exclusion, and men are women. But it just goes to show that, like, the fact that somebody in 2024 can still give that speech to applause just shows that this very much does operate like a cult, because you go and take that speech,
yes,
and you give it to anywhere else outside of that kind of manufactured scenario, nobody is clapping for that. It's not like if you took MLK or JFK and put them in those speeches that they were giving that really touched people deeply, no matter what scenario they were in, people would have listened to that and been, damn, that's a speech. But this stuff, it's the exact opposite of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of in this situation where I'm selling my Jaguar. So if anybody wants a slightly used Jaguar F-Pace, I got one for you. You know what's crazy if you actually listen to that guy is this seems like the group is only prioritizing their own needs and not the value of the brand. Like before, when this was happening at scale, you take a Walmart. Walmart's kind of androgynous. You don't really know what it is. You don't really care. It's just like, whatever, everybody come here. It's John Everyman, but also like Jane Everywoman. That's what it is, right? So you throw this stuff in there and you're kind of like, yeah, okay. Like, I guess, but Harley Davidson, that's insane. Like, understanding your archetype, like, that's wild that they even went down this line. Same thing with Jaguar. Jaguar is not Harley, but Jaguar is speaking
as a luxury brand to be like, we care about equity. It's like, no, your whole thing is about pandering to rich people.
Exactly. That's exactly it. That's my, so you look at it and you kind of go, okay, your archetype, your demography, like, this doesn't make any sense at all. This doesn't fit. You can't add this on top and it be something that improves your situation. It will only make it worse. It will only be toxic within their culture. Hopefully they change course here. But either way, they're going to suffer significantly from it.
Well, I think this goes to all collectivist ideologies, whether it be things like Marxism and communism, or whether it be like this woke ideology. And I think that they're totalitarian on the same level. But one of the things with all of those ideologies is that they actually do seek to level everybody, right? Because the people, you were talking about this guy, he's very unimpressive. He's doing it for his own worth. Or he's doing it for his own reasons.
Yes.
But one of the things that all of these ideologues do is they understand, I think, and it's something subconscious, but they feel that they aren't unique or capable people. They aren't able to propel themselves forward on their own competence and skills. And so they need to put forward this whole ethos of everybody caring for everybody. Like when you start thinking about when people talk about their virtues and virtue signaling, it's a mask for what they truly want. So, okay, we need to take care of everyone. What I always do is I immediately look at that person and go, are they a person capable of taking care of anyone? Typically, no. So really, usually what they're saying is, I need more people to care about me.
Yes.
And that's exactly what you're seeing here with all of this kind of stuff.
I think that's why the foundation of these movements in a lot of cases are very weak, because you don't have strong-willed individuals actually espousing this nonsense, because it's not how someone who promotes or stands for individual freedom would even speak. You know, you and I come from a place of empowering others to stand up for themselves and do their own thing. That's how I think society should operate. But all these other groups that are very inherently weak are like, we need to support everybody because we need everybody to support us. Ugh, foundation of it's very broken.
That Peterson quote hits hard here, where he said, if you think strong men are dangerous, wait till you see what weak men can do. Like, yep.
Oy.
All right, moving on to our next topic. We've got Canada's justice system falls to woke ideology. Bill C-40, Trudeau's Miscarriage of Justice Review Commission Act, threatens Canada's judicial independence by empowering a government-appointed commission to overturn court rulings and order retrials. Shockingly, only 1/3 of commissioners are required to have law degrees, with the rest presumably chosen based on ideological alignment. The bill's vague criteria, like, quote, new matters of significance, grant sweeping authority prioritizing identity politics over legal expertise. With 76% of judges already tied to the Liberal Party in Canada, Bill C-40 cements Trudeau's control over the justice system, replacing impartiality with partisanship. This ideological power grab undermines the rule of law and must be resisted. So, on a scale of 1 to 10, how corrupted and subverted has our justice system become?
It's currently at a 7. And this is the kind of shit that brings it to a 10 very quickly. I think that I'm not sure that enough people, maybe they do, but I'm not sure enough people realize the importance of having an impartial judicial system and how it actually helps you maintain your democracy. Because if you have a system that is completely controlled by the state, the judicial system that is completely controlled by the state, they can steamroll anything they want through in any way, shape, or form, and they start taking away all of your democratic values very quickly. Because the only reason you'd want complete control over it is to push through your own agenda. Whatever ideological perspectives you have, whatever you're trying to accomplish, that's why you want control over this. Otherwise, you'd want it to be impartial and fair. That's what you would want. This is insane. This is wildly insane. I need to do a much longer talk on this, because I think this is one of those things that if this works its way through and does not get repealed, these are the kinds of things that make people say Canada's becoming communist. This is the kind of shit. This is exactly it, right? But the problem is, it's not explained properly to a lot of people and gets very little media coverage. But, you know, you'd say this kind of thing to my parents. It's like, oh no, Jonathan, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, guys, what so it's like it's very important that this thing gets a lot of coverage. Because I think it could be one of the biggest issues we have in sort of maintaining or separating state with our judicial system in a sense. So again, we're at a 7 right now, but this could push us over the top.
And what's so crazy about this is looking at it going, okay, if I could see, if you're a tyrant, if you wanted to create a totalitarian state, you would look at, say, the justice system and go, we need to subvert this. We need this to operate for our values and our objectives.
That's how we do it. Yep.
It's so wild that they're putting this together, which again is a commission that will oversee the judicial proceedings. So if a court declares, okay, this person is guilty for XYZ crime, this commission could come in and say, you know what, historically, this person's group has been disadvantaged, so therefore it's racist for you to give them a sentence for this car thief.
And then you look at crime rates in Canada.
Again, I could see if you're a tyrant and you want to overthrow the judicial system that this would be a move, but like they already have it with like 76% of judges, again, donating financially to the Liberal government. So many of them are appointed by Trudeau in this whole system, whether it be our Senate and such as well. And so you go like, okay, so now you're creating a commission that is heavily partisan to you and your goals to
only partisan to you and your goals.
Right. To override the decisions of a group that is already
under your control.
Yeah. Like what?
So this is what I mean. This is why when people look at this, you got to understand there's only one intention here. There's nothing here about fairness or impartiality, nothing at all. They already control the system. This is one more layer of control. And then you think about it, you go, okay, they've already got control over things. There's already rampant crime. They're already basically the justice system's already falling to a lot of these DEI initiatives, basically, right? Just to kind of keep it in this loop. So you think to yourself, well, if they're already towing the line, why would they do something like this? It's because more significant shit's coming down the pipeline. That's why you put these things in place. You're going to try to pass through and push through things that are going to be more egregious, and you need a bigger stick to make sure that you can keep it in line. That's what this is to me. I think it's very dangerous where this is going, and I hope like you said, it's gone through its second reading in the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not
right on the board of being passed.
Exactly. This is wild.
Well, and to show just how crazy this can get, there was a instance from Nova Scotia I think it was a year or two ago, where a father had incestual relationships with his mentally deficient daughter and impregnated her. And the court, incest in Canada usually requires a prison sentence of multiple years. And what the court did was give him 2 years on house arrest. And so they were like, why is this guy, like, he impregnated his mentally disabled daughter. A sentence needs to come with this. Well, so the Crown appealed and said, hey, we don't agree with this decision that this court has given this guy. The courts came back and said, yeah, we understand that this sentence isn't as punitive as the legal system recommends. However, our legal documents don't take into consideration the unique challenges faced by African Nova Scotians. And so as they're saying, like, yeah, we're not going to give him the actual penalty because he's black. And you're like, okay, that's also just a wild thing right there to say, to be like, because like, that's pretty racist to be like, well, you see, he raped his daughter because he's black.
What?
Like, that's essentially what they don't
exactly
come out
what
and
they're
say
saying.
it, but they're saying, well, it's because of his situation as a black man that led him to do this. You're like, that's way more racist than anything else.
Oh, that's such a disturbing story.
Right? But again, this is where Canada's justice system already is. And they're wanting to put measures in place to make those kind of insane instances more common.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, this is only going to lead to more significant stuff. There's obviously more coming down the pipeline to justify them trying to push this through. What's dark to me is the group of people that put this together. You guys are evil. You guys are not worried about Canadians. This is insane. This is maybe one of those times where you have to look at it if you're a liberal, or I'm sure none of them are listening to this. But here's my point though. Like, you look at a lot of this stuff and you look at a lot of the policy that they're passing through, and I think you need to ask yourselves, how and in what way does this serve Canadians? Where is the benefit? Where is the value here? There's nothing but evil here. There's nothing. There's no way to maintain. There's no way. This is not going to help us maintain law and order. Look what's already happening. This is only going to get worse. This country is continuing to go down faster and further. And it's just shit like this, man. That's, it's stuff like this that makes you want to leave. You know what I mean? I get there's no utopia, but it's stuff like this is like, I can't be here. I gotta go. Because here's the thing. Right now it's some black guy raping his mentally handicapped daughter and impregnating her, then getting house arrest where
I should say that
did they at least take the daughter away?
The legal proceeding said that it was a consensual incest relationship. But again, my thing is if it's your daughter and she's mentally challenged,
there's no nope. Not even allowed to say that shit. That's nonsense. What are you talking about? Did they leave the daughter in the house when he's under house arrest?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh my God, what a fucking mess. On that one. So here's the problem. Right now, that's what it is, which I think everybody's gonna go, wow, guys, that's insane. But now here's the next thing. You know, does this go the direction of, well, Liam and Jonathan talk a lot of shit about Canada, And, we're going to slap them with some sort of censorship fine, whatever it may be. We think they should lose this and that. And, if they speak up on social media again, they're going to jail or whatever it may be, right? Because we know that that's kind of where our censorship laws are going, kind of like the UK. Like, hey, if they say anything wrong, we're going to throw them in prison. Okay. So they go, well, Jonathan and Liam don't have criminal records. They're nice kids, whatever. And then this board goes, not enough. 10 years. We want them to get 10 years for speaking out like that. That's what they deserve. Retrial. And this is now the guys that they're operating under, because now the justice system and the people that are already towing the liberal line go, well, now I've got a new mom and dad, and they told me that I have to give these guys a more significant sentence. So they're going to find a judge that's going to do what they want. Now you and I get 10 years for talking shit against the government that's allowing this kind of shit to happen.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going in a good direction, ladies and gentlemen. No, we're not.
All right, moving on to our next story. We've got record number of asylum seekers to cost Canadians over $16 billion annually. Canada's asylum system is collapsing under the Liberal government with over 200,000 claims in 2023, triple the Immigration and Refugee Board's capacity, causing delays to soar from 14 to 44 months. This backlog rewards fraudulent claimants with free healthcare, housing, and employment, costing $82,000 per asylum seeker annually, far exceeding the average Canadian income. The system's annual cost could hit $16.35 billion amid Canada's housing crisis and overburdened public services. Despite admitting to mass immigration mismanagement, Trudeau blames bad actors deflecting responsibility. Critics argue his policies manufacture crises, leaving Canadians to bear the financial and social burden of his failed immigration agenda. So Trudeau has recently tried to shift his stance on immigration when it comes to permanent residency, temporary foreign workers, and international students. Do you think refugees and asylum seekers are going to be next on the list of cutbacks?
Yeah, I think it's sort of the next natural step, to say, hey, this is the next group we have to sort of dial back on. Anytime you're reducing immigration, I think you have to look at it like, okay, where are the 4 or 5 places people are all coming in from? And the asylum seekers are definitely one of them, right? And it's also a system that they're allowing people to take advantage of openly, right? Our immigration minister, Mark Miller, is like, yeah, we know what's happening. Like, what are you doing about it? What are you doing? What do you mean? So the threshold for letting students, if you have a student visa here, you're not an asylum seeker at all. Yeah. You shouldn't be able to apply even a little bit. That shouldn't even be a box you can tick. You say shit like that, you got to go. So what I think they'll do, here's what I would do, is I would actually start reforming the system itself. Being like, okay, where are people coming from that are actual asylum seekers? For the most part, I don't agree with the program. But you can look at war-torn countries. You can argue Ukraine. You can argue the Middle East. You can. I'm not for it, but you can argue it. You can argue Africa. You can argue these different locations where shit's bad. Again, not a fan. Now, I think that asylum seekers, if you're going to allow this kind of stuff to happen, it has to be very limited. And the threshold has to be very, very high. So these are the things they might start implementing, because they've basically been, and I think we can both agree, the Liberal policy has basically been open the borders, let people come in, raise the GDP. This is going to make us look good. Now, obviously, GDP per capita has been a mess. The economy's been a disaster, but they're living off this one metric, raising the GDP. Well, the GDP is going up. Yeah, the rest of the country's on fire, and it's not actually, it's going down per capita. So that was my perspective. And, funding these social programs. You want to continue funding social programs. You have a disproportionate weight of older population now. The average age in Canada is in the 40s now. So you kind of go, okay, we got to make this adjustment. So that was their play. And then they made everything easy. They go, asylum, there's no rules. Students, no rules. No rules. Anybody can come in. They let the floodgates open on all of those prongs that I'm talking about. But now they're starting to tighten them all up, right? So this is just the next one. I think it's a pretty easy one to tighten up. And I don't think they have a choice, because, you can argue, well, students bring money to the country. Students are paying tuition fees. They're buying goods here. They're adding to the economy. Again, at this volume, I think it's fucking ridiculous. But you can argue that it's benefiting Canada in some way. These asylum seekers, this is the most costly form of immigration we have. $82,000 per individual, when the average family is bringing home $70,500 per year as a family after paying taxes. You want to find a way for Canadians to hate immigrants. Keep letting these people come in. I think that that's misplaced, because I think asylum seekers are taking advantage of a bad system. So I wouldn't necessarily blame them. I'd blame the system. But that's what you're creating, because people as individuals are go, I can't change the government, so I'm going to hate the people that they're letting in here that are ruining this country. It's just kind of inevitable. It's what happens. So they're definitely going to cut it back. Are they going to cut it back enough? Not likely. We looked at them say, oh, we're going to do a 30% reduction. Great. So you're going to let 1 million people? Guys, we need to reduce this by 80% or more. 80% or more. So Will it be enough? No, but is it next on the chopping block? Definitely.
Well, I think to your point, yes, a lot of the frustration will get misdirected to the wrong people. However, I do think there is actually, and I've come around more and more to this, there is some. I don't think when it comes to things like you were pointing out, say the international students who sign on, they say, okay, we're coming here for you've got a temporary visa. You've signed on to this contract. And then at the end of it, you sit here and say, you guys are racist or bad system if you don't allow us to stay. It's like, no, that was never part of the deal. That was never once part of the deal. So for a lot of those international students, which is like tens of thousands of them now, to turn around and then just claim asylum so that they don't have to go back to wherever they came from when they came here to study, and then they live off of the taxpayers, I do think there is some blame. At that point, you're not just simply trying to escape a bad scenario, because I can understand if it's like, if you just got zero economic outlook, your country is shit, zero infrastructure, and you're just like, okay, I'm going to try to get this asylum program to come over here. But if you were coming over here on a student visa, chances are you had resources at your disposal, like to get the student visa in the first place, to put yourself through school, finances, all of this kind of stuff. So like your situation isn't the same as, say, what a asylum seeker or refugee should be. So I do think there is some moral culpability on those people. However, the vast majority of it does land on our government for sure. Because even you look at that, okay, how do we not have a system in place that when somebody applies for refugee status in Canada, that we just cross-references it across our other government databases to go, oh, this person's already been living in Canada for 3 years.
Yes, what are we doing?
Zero chance.
That's what I mean.
Like
that
approval process that rejection process, should be able to be automated at that point.
But you know what? Actually, I was just reading, and these numbers may be a little skewed, but I'm very, very close. I don't remember the term exactly. It might have been through Trudeau's tenure. It might have been over the last few years. 500,000 asylum seekers and refugee claims have been made. Only less than 10,000 have been deported. Less than 10,000 have been refused.
Wow.
That's it. That's absolutely mental. So they are definitely going to tighten up on that. Back to your thing about sort of like the moral culpability. I don't necessarily disagree, but I think it's tough. Like if imagine you're in the United States and you're looking at what's happening here in Canada, you're going, I don't really want to go back there. I got good opportunity in the United States, but the process to get a visa here is going to take X amount of dollars and X amount of time. I'm going to go claim refugee status. And then maybe over the next couple of years, being charitable in their perspective, I'm going to make sure that I can apply for this the right way or do whatever I need to do, because obviously these refugee things, I think it only comes with like a three-year term or something, maybe more, but I think that it plays in. So you kind of go, that's my way. It's my Band-Aid solution to make sure I can stick around and then do whatever. So again, I have trouble blaming them for this stupid system that our government allows, but I understand your perspective.
And then also there's the added aspect of the Liberals. They were recently being questioned on, okay, well, what are you going to do with all of these international students and temporary foreign workers and such that are already here, that are overextending their stay, that aren't supposed to be here anymore? And they were like, oh, we're going to ask them to leave. It's like, so you have nothing in place from a systems perspective to actually get these people out of here. You're just going to simply say, hey guys, we'd like you to go home now. It's like, that's not going to work for millions of people.
No, it's funny. Actually, they're like, we think they're just going to go home. I was like, what? How did someone publish this? What are we doing? It's next on the chopping block, but still not going to be enough.
Moving on, we've got Poilievre opposes Trudeau's GST break, calling it an inflationary trick. Despite Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's opposition, the Liberal NDP plan for a 2-month GST break and $250 checks for 18.7 million Canadians has been passed. Poilievre criticized the measure as an inflationary trick, arguing it exacerbates economic instability while failing to address Canada's deeper economic challenges. He warned that the $6 billion plan, which creates excess demand, will fuel further inflation and worsen the cost of living crisis, calling it a short-term political ploy. Poilievre highlighted the need for structural economic reforms instead of temporary relief that burdens taxpayers. Canadians deserve responsible leadership, not gimmicks that worsen the long-term economic outlook, he said. So one of the things that the Liberals have been spinning about this is that Poilievre constantly talks about axing the tax and such. And then they're turning around being like, look, he's a hypocrite. Now he doesn't want to give you a tax break. So do you think there's any weight to that accusation?
This is only going to cost Canadians more money, right? It's just a cheap inflationary check. It's exactly what he called it. And, you want to look at things like this as how it's benefiting society. And the only way for that to happen is if there's a reduction in government spending at the same time. But it has to be significant by comparison. And this is not what they're doing. This is just more government spending. This is a small version of when he printed $400 billion through the pandemic, a small version. And we all know what that did to the economy. It's the same thing, right? This is exactly what's going to happen. I'm still of the mind they did this, and maybe you can help me because I don't know how this happened. So if it passed, they must have opened Parliament.
I think so.
Right. So if they open Parliament, that means that there's no longer a freeze, which means the Conservative government's no longer chasing down all the documents for the Green Slush Fund, which we know the Liberal government actually, it seems like they buried and paid off their buddies and corrupt in some way stole $300 million. So this is just a get out of jail free card for Trudeau that cost us $6 billion plus.
Yeah. And one thing that I think about in regards to this kind of stuff is like, okay, yes, with Poilievre, he constantly talks about getting rid of taxes and lowering taxes and such. First of all, a temporary break for a month and a half is nothing. Like that doesn't really help Canadians at all.
I think it just adds administrative cost and nuisance for everybody that's involved in this, that's selling things.
Mm-hmm. But so I'm going to give, that's another aspect as well is now, okay, if you're a company, let's say you're a Walmart and you've got 40,000 products in your store, you now have to go into your POS system, your point of sale system, and change every single one of those items. You have to sort out which ones fall under which.
Yes. And then all the accounting on the back end as well now just adds a massive complexity to it. Mm-hmm. This is just, you just made more government work essentially. This is nonsense.
And to your point, it's not even just $6 billion. It's actually closer to 10 once you consider the amount of cost it takes to administer these programs. So it's closer to a $10 billion public funds. But just a very, say, low resolution overview of this is like, okay, let's say the government has $100 in debt. And right now it's taking in $50 per year in taxes and it wants to pay down that debt. Well, the equivalent right now is that the government is still spending as much as it was to get it to that point of where its debt is at $100. And now they're reducing their revenue. So they're actually only taking in less money to pay off the problem, which is the government debt. So in reality, what a real way to take both down taxes and deal with the debt is to get rid of a lot of the administration of government, like what Malay has done. So let's say their yearly spending is $75 and their revenue is $50. That's why it is. It's like, you need to cut your spending down to $20 and take your revenue down to $30. That way you still have enough money to pay off the debt and you're not accruing more. But right now, all they're doing is putting themselves into a scenario where they're taking on more debt.
It's stuff like this. It's interesting. I do this. I do this dance with myself constantly of wanting to get into politics. Now, for me, I don't mean anything by this. I don't think I'm great. I don't think necessarily I should be in this role. But when I think about politics, I only think about being the leader of the country. That's the only way I process because I feel like that's how you make these changes and this difference. This is the kind of stuff though that makes me go, this is such an easy fix. Sure, it's painful. It's a Band-Aid, but I know how to rip those off. We're good. It makes you want to get in and actually fix it because you look at Malay and you look at the significant changes he's made there, and now their country's back on track. And now it's actually an investment. Now, people from around the world that work in the economic space are like, you should be investing in Argentina, or it's right on the precipice. It's right there. You know what I mean? You look at Canada and it's like, we're such an investable country. We have so much to offer if we just made a couple of the right moves. It's such an easy fix. You go down in history as the king if you can make it. But this is easy. But it's just like, can you get in there, A? And if you do, can you actually make these changes? Or have they built such a bulletproof system that they bury you in bureaucracy and nonsense or put a bullet in your head? One of the two, I don't know. Because this is the kind of stuff though that makes me go, yeah, I can get in here and I can fix this mess real easy.
Well, I think it's actually the distinction to make is the difference between simplicity and ease. So
Good call.
I agree. It's
Good
simple.
call.
It's
Yeah.
very simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah, good call.
It's like losing weight. It's like all you have to do is work out and not eat shit food.
Yeah, but for you and I,
you'll
that's
lose weight.
I mean, that's
That's
easy.
simple.
Yeah,
But for a lot of people, it's not easy.
that's true. Yeah, that's a very good perspective. Hey, that's a sharp thought. I like that.
All right, moving on to our next story. We've got from Fauci's fear to Bhattacharya's courage, Trump's NIH shakeup. Donald Trump's nomination of Dr. Jay Bhattacharya to lead the NIH signals a radical shift in U.S. health policy. Bhattacharya, a Stanford professor and co-author of the Great Barrington Declaration, criticized lockdowns for harming children, families, and the vulnerable, accurately predicting widespread mental health and education crises. Vilified and censored under Anthony Fauci's tenure, Bhattacharya remained steadfast in advocating science over politics. His focus on focused protection and evidence-based strategies offers hope for restoring trust in public health. Alongside RFK Jr. at HHS, Bhattacharya aims to bring transparency, innovation, and accountability to a broken-down institution. All right, is this a sign that Trump is for real when it comes to overhauling a lot of these bureaucracies?
Oh, I think he's very, very real. I think everything he's doing, every move he's made has been like better than the things I would have been thinking. Obviously, I'm not American, so I don't understand the intricacies anymore. But the reason I say that is like you and I operate from sort of a libertarian, let's fix everything, let's be logical perspective. That's exactly what I feel he's doing right now. I think he's implementing a lot of the right people. Now, some of them I'm not sure I totally agree with. I think he's going to have an issue with some of these wars that are going to continue to go on, even though he's saying he's going to go the other way. I think some of the people he's appointing may not be maybe the best, but it's more on foreign policy, I think, actually, if I'm being honest. So, when it comes to the health stuff, he's implementing all of the right people that have all of the right sort of thought processes and approach to fix this mess. Now, back to your point in the previous discussion we were having, simple, but not easy. I don't know how successful these guys are, Bhattacharya and RFK. I don't know how successful they're going to be in actually overhauling the system, but I think that they're the guys to do it, right? And people make this argument like, oh, well, RFK Jr. is anti this, anti that, whatever. He made a good point the other day. I spent 30 years trying to get mercury out of fish. No one called me anti-fish, right? Definitely a micro issue, but I think you can take a macro perspective on that and apply that to both guys. But again, he had to spend 30 years doing it. So what I hear from that is, right intention, bureaucracy and nonsense in his way. So will they actually be able to get things done? Is Trump's head and heart in the right place? It very much seems so, to answer your question. But in terms of how much they can accomplish, that is still yet to be seen. I'm optimistic, but also realistic. So I think we're going to see how the first 90 days go and be able to tell a little more about what the next 4 years might look like.
Yeah, to your point, I do think there is some questionable appointees, like say Marco Rubio, who has just been a neocon establishment shill for his whole career. Although what I do wonder in that scenario as well is when it comes to say things in the political realm, you often need people with influence and power broking capabilities to say get things through. So you're like, okay, maybe I need these 10 people like the RFK Juniors and the Bhattacharyas to be in charge of these institutions. But then I'm going to need somebody that has the influence within Congress to be able to push through the changes I actually want to make.
Right.
Now, that's the most charitable aspect, because I do think it also deserves some criticism to be like, hey, these are the same people that endlessly push for wars and such, and now you're allowing them into your administration.
Yes.
So there is some pushback to be had there as well. But specifically in Bhattacharya's case and say RFK Jr.'s, as to how much they can really change, say, the systems, we'll see. But one of the things that I think, again, you can never discount is just truth. And if these guys can get in there and say, go, all right, I've looked, essentially what Elon did with the Twitter files.
Yes.
Just go in there and be like, hey, here's all of the information that these institutions had when they were making these decisions.
Yes.
Sort it out yourself, public. If they can just do that,
well,
it's going to be a reckoning. Even if they don't go in and they go, oh, I'm going to tweak this thing, I'm going to tweak that. Even if they just go, here's what we've been doing.
That's true.
That's
because
enough
then
to be like,
you sort of force public. It's like what do they call it? Trial by public opinion, essentially, right? So yeah, if they do something like that, it's essentially trial by public opinion. They are going to have to change course very quickly, and they might reduce a lot of the bureaucracy and stuff that's in their way because the public will demand these changes, right? So, I think that would be a really good approach. I'm also interested to see how things work out with Kash Patel, who he's just appointed as the FBI director, who's like, Epstein list, let's go. Diddy list, definitely happening. So I'm like, this will be pretty interesting. Either America's about to become great again, or a lot of people in the upcoming administration are going to be dead.
Yeah. Well, you just saw too, Putin just said recently that he's like, I think Trump needs to watch out.
Yes.
Because look, Putin rules with an iron. I mean, if anybody knows about political assassinations and how they operate, it's Putin.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he's looking at it this way. Okay, if anybody was to come into my government and try to completely change everything from the way that we operate militarily to agriculture to health to all of these aspects, energy, whatever, if they were just to come in and try to flip everything on the head that I've been doing, gone, dead. And so I think he's sitting there looking at that going, well, America is just as power hungry. The establishment is just as evil. They do all the same shit I do. They just hide it better from their population.
Exactly. They hide it behind the guise of democracy. That's it. That's all.
And
you have a choice in all this.
And so I think he's sitting there going, yeah, I know if you were on my side of the border, I'd kill you.
Yeah.
So
it's a good perspective to have. Yes, exactly. Actually, like a valuable point.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy to tell you what's going on there. Yeah, but I heard recently that guys like RFK, obviously Trump, they've significantly beefed up their security.
Right.
Like big time. I think they know what they're doing. Like you and I sit here and go, oh my God, like what's going to happen to them? They know what they're doing, right? So you think about that and you think they've all had action taken on their lives, both of them, RFK and Trump. Trump's were obviously a little more significant, but RFK had a couple guys too that were armed to the teeth that were trying to come in and sort things out. So they know, and they know that they're now going to be in power. I think I imagine, I mean, there's obviously arbitrary, I don't know, but I would imagine they've almost doubled their security efforts given what's happened and the things that they're now currently saying, right? So I'm hopeful that that won't happen. But here's the other thing to consider. So much of it is already out, and there's so many people now, right? It's kind of like there's power in numbers. He's appointing all these people, and he's kind of made his agenda known. So even if they take him out, who they got to take out next? Vance? Because Vance will do this. Vance is a strong individual. He's intelligent. I really like him. He's not weird at all. That was weird. You're weird for thinking he's weird. He's the kind of guy that will implement Trump's agenda and won't even blink. He'll be like, cool, this is next. Guy's got a military background too. You're not going to scare that guy. Now, if they start taking out Trump and Vance and multiple people like this, like guys, the RFKs, if they really go on that